What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to episode 84 of the Charge to the Top here with Hereford FC. And today we kick off season 10 here at the club. 10 years we have been here. Well, this will be our 10th year. What a time it has been. And, well, I will precursor this episode by saying that I believe that this is a new era here at Hereford. I feel like we've really improved the side. Obviously, last year, we finished 13th in the league. A fantastic achievement. No one can fault us for that. But, in reality, to continue kind of our Premier League campaigns to try and push for maybe European football in the coming years, we needed to look to reinvest, obviously. Lots of money brought in through the TV deals going on. Our wages were very low last year. And it'd be fair to say this is the first time really in this series that I feel like there's kind of not a overhaul, I guess. I don't want to use the word overhaul, but a really kind of a full-on rejuvenation, I guess, the side. As you can see here, £61 million spent. We did make £17 million in sales as well. We'll quickly go through these. Tristan Needham left Derby County, a player who joined us a few years ago in the Championship for, I think, under £1 million. So to receive the kind of money we received for him, very happy about that indeed. You know, that's money that we can reinvest. Another player who left us, George Gray, joined us at the start of last year. Made a fair few appearances, made a little bit of an impact initially, but towards the end of the season fizzled out. And well, to receive £6 million for him from a Championship side is a good little bit of business. There are also a few other sales here and a few other departures. Tom Davies was released. Gustavo Rojas, you know, the right back, a player who deserves a lot of credit, was out of contract for the entirety of last year. At the end of the last season, decided it was time to move him on. He wasn't going to feature in our first team. And perhaps the saddest of the names on this list, Harry Lennon leaves us, unfortunately. 30 years old, a player who, well, gave his life and soul here to Hereford FC. Of course, joined us back when we were in the non-league. He's played with us through all the divisions up to the Premier League. Unfortunately, never made a Premier League appearance. Last year spent a brief spell on loan at Blackpool where he showed that perhaps he isn't even good enough for League 2 football now, which is a little bit sad to say. But I'm desperately hoping he does find a club because, well, he's been a fantastic servant to the club and, well, perhaps he's a little bit of a sign of the times. You know, £70 million, as I said, was in the balance at the end of last season. We've reinvested a lot of that. £61 million spent on players. And, well, shall we have a look through these players? Because last year we paid well. We performed above all expectations. I was delighted with how we got on, but there were certainly times where we definitely lacked quality and we needed to build a Premier League side. And that has been what I've been able to do. When you consider last year, I think we had under £6 million to spend on players, and this year alone we've taken in £17 million in sales. It kind of gives you an idea of the progression that we've made. You know, last year we proved that we could slug it out in the Premier League and hold our spot in the division, and well, we made a lot of money. And that's what I've tried to reinvest to hopefully now create a sustainable club here at Hereford who can kind of slug it out in the Premier League. I'd like to aim for the top half this year with some of the players we've brought in. You can see, despite spending £61 million, we've not spent it all on one player. The money's fairly nicely spread out, which is, I think, a smart approach to take. And, well, I think the first of the players that we'll have a look at here, Andy O'Neill, perhaps a sign of a new era here at Hereford. 22 years old, Irish international, going to come in and be club captain this year. A big responsibility for him, but I like the look of him. 14 leadership, obviously good determination as well. A player who last year was playing for Nottingham Forest, who you can see he's played for a number of years. He had a few loan spells at the likes of Reading, Celtic as well. Last year in the Premier League, of course, Nottingham Forest were relegated. He didn't put in the best kind of number of performances, but I feel like one thing we have done here at Hereford is give players a second chance. Give players who haven't necessarily performed at their previous clubs an opportunity to shine in a system that better facilitates kind of their ideal role. And I feel like Andy is going to be a big beneficiary of that this year. I'm going to be playing him at right back, at least to start the season. He does lack a little bit of ability in the air, although it'd be unfair to say he's bad in the air. And yeah, at 22 years old, I feel like for, well, £12.5 million, it's not a bad little signing at all. Anyway, a few new strikers have entered the fray. The first one here, Silla, an Ivory Coast international. Of course, we have a few Ivory Coast players in our midst, and while this guy, another one to add to that growing list. 20 appearances and 10 goals at international level. 24 years old, signed from Standard Liège in Belgium. You can see, started his career at ASEC, a club that we know all too well. But you can see over the last 2 years at Standard, he's scored over 20 goals. He's really proven himself as a goal scorer, and I want to give him a chance now to come come to the Premier League and perform on a big stage. I feel like it's a pretty decent fee that we've paid for him. It's not too crazy. I feel like £11.5 million for a player with the form that he has. His wages, they're not too high compared to some of the other players we've brought in. Can also play out on the right, which is useful as well. Perhaps his lack of ability in the air with the 5 jumping reach cause for concern, but fantastic when it comes to his physicals and pace. Attacking ability, not too bad either. And at 24, plenty of years left ahead of him. Anyway, the next player we brought in, Fred Kasongo, a player who is from the Democratic Republic of Congo, 23 years old. More of a goal scorer, this guy, in terms of when you look at his attributes. Better finishing, better composure, better off the ball. Physically very good indeed. Fairly decent in the air. Fairly professional. I mean, I like the look of this guy. You can see here, wages. Pretty large wages, £85,000. There was a fair bit of interest in Fred Kasongo. We signed him from Hertha Berlin. And, there's a bit of contrast, I guess, between him and Silla, because you can see the last few years, really, he's never really shone. He actually started his career at Hertha Berlin. And, he broke into their first team a number of years ago now at quite a young age. But he's never scored more than 11 goals in a season, in the first team. And that's something that I feel like we've got to try and address this year. And I feel like at £14 million, perhaps this is a little bit of a punt. But when I look at this guy, he just looks like the complete package. And I feel like if we can get him playing well, he's going to be a great, solid player for us. Now, to start the season, I am going to be playing a 4-2-3-1. Of course, last year we kind of reverted from the 4-3-1-2, the narrower system, to play a more conventional wide system. The idea of going back to the narrower system has not completely left my mind. It was one of the reasons behind signing the 2 strikers I have brought in. But at least to start the season, Kasongo here will be playing out on the left as an inside forward. So might be interesting to monitor, I guess, how he gets on there initially. Anyway, the next player we brought in, Murray Wood, Scottish international, signed from Manchester City. Very good player, good in the air. Perhaps not the paciest, but a very good young defender. We've got him in on loan, a player who I'd love to sign long term. I don't think that's going to be possible. But a good player to get on loan nevertheless. Anyway, the next player we have, Sugano, bit of youth for the future, 19 years old, Japanese player, loaned back to Yokohama in Japan. Hopefully, obviously, he can continue to develop there, but a player who I feel like at the moment he looks good, but at 19 he's got a way to improve himself. But I feel like £1.2 million is a fairly risk-free transfer, so happy to get that done. Another young striker who joined us is this guy, Ibrahim Goma, another Egyptian. Obviously, Hamdi kind of was a revelation in the first team last year in the centre of the midfield. Hoping this guy can follow suit. He's gone on loan to Palermo in Italy, but at 19 years old, he's already playing regular first-team football for the national team in Egypt. 2 goals in 4 appearances for them. Similar to the other strikers we brought in terms of he's not the best in the air, but he's got great physicals and speed. And I'm hoping, obviously, long term, this guy's going to play lots of football, get a work permit, and £400,000 paid. Bargain. Absolute bargain. Delighted with that. Another bargain, a free transfer, Michalis Marku. This guy, a Cypriot international, 24 years old, was playing at Celtic. Professional personality, just some good strength and depth in the centre of the midfield. Of course, bringing him in on a free transfer as well, always an added bonus. The next player we have, Miguel Morales. Delighted with this transfer again. I'm fairly happy with all of these deals, in case that wasn't obvious, but £5.5 million paid for this guy. Perhaps the best example of value for money, because this guy at 20 years old, a wonder kid, playing a lot of first team football for Mexico, so got a work permit, and to sign in for a measly sum, really. I'm very happy about indeed. Great in the air. Physically perhaps could be a little bit better, but I can't fault him too much at all. And at 20, definitely some room to develop. You look at his report here, well suited to Premier League football. Perhaps his technicals let him down a little bit. The big con really with Morales is the fact that he would only sign a contract with us if it included a release clause to clubs in the Champions League. Now that release clause is just shy of £40 million, which if we were to receive, of course, I wouldn't complain about too much. But given what I think this guy might be able to achieve long term, it's a little bit annoying, and it's something that will hopefully be something that we can kind of work out and remove from any future contract, should we look to extend it at any time. Anyway, the next player we have, Christian Frodig, talented player, can play sweeper, which is always an added bonus in a defender. 18 years old, you can see not the best when it comes to his speed, not necessarily the best when it comes to his aerial ability, although fortunately that aerial ability is mostly in the heading department, which is something we can certainly address. He's 18 years old, he's gone on loan to FC Twente, who of course have a fair few of our players. They've been a pretty good club in terms of developing some of our youngsters. Unfortunately, Frodig out with a dislocated shoulder, so that's a little bit of a concern there. Anyway, the next player we brought in, Prince Asamoah, another African player we've brought in. I really like the look of this guy. Again, quality little centre midfielder, but can also play right back, which is obviously a little bonus. I definitely see him playing kind of deep line playmaker on defend for us this year. I think, with 17 vision, 17 technique, great passing, but also good tackling ability. 14 marking, 13 tackling. He's a player who can be a very good kind of defensive option for us in the midfield as well, even as a centre mid on defend, which is actually where he's probably most likely to play for us this year. But yeah, a player with a lot of flexibility at 24, an established player already. I don't expect him to improve too much. When you consider that Angers, who we signed him from for £12 million, only paid £2 million for him last year and he didn't perform that well, perhaps it looks like we've overpaid, but I feel like this guy can offer a lot to our team. Professional personality, a player whom I'm really hoping we can develop. It is, however, worth noting, we have brought in a fair few players from African-based nations. A big reason behind this being that they are cheaper, generally speaking. They're easily able to get work permits because, of course, they are playing for their national teams. It does come at the big kind of, red mark and bit of a negative in the sense that every 2 years for the African Cup of Nations, we're going to be without a fair few of these players for an entire month, kind of over January, and some even a little bit longer if their nations progress. Now, fortunately, the African Cup of Nations was last season, so at least this season that isn't going to be a massive effect for us. And well, hopefully, by the we get to kind of this point next season, we can have a little bit more strength in our side. Anyway, when you look across our team as a whole, you'd have to say it's looking very, very strong now. It's also worth noting, essentially a new transfer is Jonathan Chang, of course, a player who we brought in on a free transfer during the kind of end of the season last year in kind of March time. He signed a contract with us. Really excited by this guy. He didn't get a work permit then, but over the summer he's been involved in a Mexican Cup campaign. I can't remember what competition they were playing in, but he got a fair few caps over that period of time, and as a result he was able to get a work permit. You can see here they actually won the Gold Cup as a whole, and he was a massive component of their side. So delighted he's got a work permit. As I said, essentially a new player for us. Fantastic when it comes to his free kicks. A real talent, great personality as well. Hopefully, obviously, he can put in the performances that his ability would indicate he should be able to offer for us. So as I said, all in all, it kind of feels like a new era here at Hereford. A lot of new players coming in. Not perhaps so many players going out. A few of the players who were in the club last year will continue to develop. I still want to focus on the likes of Tomohisa Kato and also Cameron Bowman, who joined us and got a work permit during the off-season. And these are players who I want to really foster and develop and give opportunities to, because they're players who they have the potential, I think, to exceed kind of what our current crop of players can do. But you look across the team as a whole, the average age is very, very low indeed. You can see as well, looking at the defence, there's some real talent in there. Of course, Murray Wood in on loan, but Diatta and Morales, two players who I definitely think can be big for us in the future. And of course, with players like Mustafa Hamdi, who had a big breakout season for us last year, I'm quite optimistic of kind of the future of Hereford FC here. I feel like we've got some great players coming through, and we're a team who can really hopefully charge up the Premier League in the next few years with this kind of quality if we can continue to improve on this squad as a base. And hopefully, of course, these players can perform to that level that you perhaps expect given their kind of overall quality. Anyway, in terms of our actual tactic this year, as I mentioned, kind of changing things up, we're going to go with a 4-2-3-1, which is what we played actually the second half of last year. You can see, unfortunately for us, Choi Min-ki not going to be available, so we are going to have to make a little bit of a shuffle around in the right midfielder position. I guess the logical option is just to bring Jamie Price in there. Of course, a player who last year was kind of one of our big goal scorers. Of course, Kevin Kelly, his loan expired at the end of last year. Watford weren't going to let us take him on. I guess that was another reason for bringing in some of the strikers we brought in. But if we just kind of compare, Fred Kasongo to Jamie Price, you kind of start to get an idea of the quality change here in terms of the players we've been able to bring in. Because Jamie Price is not a bad player, Welsh international, playing regularly for them, 25 years old. But obviously being in the Premier League, having the money that we have, there are the options out there like Kasongo who can really make a difference for us. Anyway, in terms of our team for today, we are going to go with Mannion in goal. Of course, a player who joined us in January from Hull last season, kind of replaced Chucky as our first choice goal scorer. It's worth noting, Chelsea are sniffing at him. They bid £8 million, which I'm never going to accept. I want a bigger fee than that. I'm thinking 20 million minimum, realistically, for me to want to sell this guy, because at 27 years old, he's just a great English goalkeeper. So that might happen. If that does happen, obviously we do have Chucky who could play in goal. He is unfortunately out injured at the moment with a hernia. Realistically, however, if I was to sell Mannion, I'd have to look at an option to replace him, I think. Anyway, across the back four, Mustafa Diatta, of course, a player who had a bit of a breakthrough at the end of last year. He is going to start a left back for us today at 19 years old. Not the greatest kind of defender from a technical standpoint, but great physicals, great pace as well. Very, very good wing back, and at 19 we need to give him regular first team football, and hopefully he will be able to develop under that. Anyway, in the centre back positions, we are going to go with Murray Wood on loan, of course, from Manchester City. Is left footed, so he's going to play that left centre back position. Alongside him we go with the Mexican Miguel Morales. Out the right back position we are going to go, of course, with Andy O'Neill, the new club captain, hoping he can, of course, have a fantastic breakout season for us in that right back role. Although kind of long term I see Murray Wood, of course, ending his loan, and then O'Neill slots in at the centre back position, and then we'll bring in someone else to play right back. We've got a few options with what we can do there, including, of course, Prince Asamoah, who can play right back for us. He is going to be playing centre mid on defend for today's game. Alongside him, Mustafa Hamdi playing that centre mid on support role. In fact, I have changed these roles. It's not a centre mid on defend anymore like it was with our 4-3-1-2. Of course, it is the deep line playmaker on defend. Anyway, out on the left, experimenting a little bit. I've not played that much with inside forwards this year in Football Manager, but Fred Kasongo is going to be our little guinea pig out on that kind of side. You can see as an inside forward on support, very good player. Perhaps his passing lets him down a little bit, not the most creative of players. Another concern I have is the fact he is left-footed only, playing out on the left-hand side as an inside forward. We'll kind of have to monitor that and see how he gets on. As I said, I'm not entirely adverse to the idea of switching to a two-striker system, which would see Kasongo, of course, play alongside Silla. I feel like that could work quite nicely, and it is something that has kind of been factored into those transfers. Anyway, the other players we have, of course, Jonathan Chan, the Mexican, two Mexicans actually in our starting 11. Hopefully he can give a good performance for us. He reminds me a little bit of Juan Carlos Leon. If you were an avid viewer of the Lewis FC save 2 years ago, you will remember that chap. He was a very good Mexican centre midfielder. He's actually very similar to Chan. And then, of course, out on the right, we have got Jamie Price playing for us today. Anyway, we have got to make a little change here because Choi Min-ki, he's not available to play today. So we'll bring in Ben Marshall, I think, as an option. So in terms of who we've got on the bench, we've got Konsa here. We've also got David Gums, a player who kind of finds himself ousted from the first team, a player who kind of last year was asking to leave at various points. I didn't let him go. I actually thought he'd probably have more of a spot in the first team this year, but given the quality of the defenders we've been able to bring in, unfortunately for him, he finds himself on the bench. Other options, we've got Jonathan Swift, a player who, of course, joined us last year on a free transfer, played a fair bit for us. He's been a little bit on the decline. We also have Marku, the Cypriot, who's a newly kind of signed player. Tomohisa Kato, the Japanese player, of course, got a work permit midway through last year. He played a fair few games for us, didn't perform that great, but I want to continue to play him. I want to continue to try and develop him. Of course, he did get European Golden Boy last year, so a player who has got kind of potential at least tipped his way. Anyway, Cameron Bowman, the other player we've got, 19 years old, a good striker option on off the bench, 16 finishing, 16 composure, good off the ball as well, very kind of fast, and I feel like that's something we can really utilise. As teams are tiring, we throw on this guy, he can make a difference. Worth noting, he is currently being tutored, which is why his determination is on the rise, and he's currently being tutored by Jamie Price with 17 determination, so good to see that rubbing off on Cameron Bowman. Hopefully that determination will reach all the way to kind of 17 there, to match Price. And the other option, we've got Ben Marshall comes into the side, 24 years old, had a good season last year, got 9 goals in 32 games, and well, he keeps his spot in the first team, although I don't think we'll be seeing quite as much of him this year compared to perhaps what we saw of him last year. Anyway, lots of new players in today's team. In fact, looking across the team, there's not many players who survived last year. I guess Diatta, Mannion, Hamdi, Price, and then basically more than half the team is new players, and that's a little bit scary in some ways. You never quite know if the risk, I guess, of changing quite as much of our team as we had is going to be worth it. Kind of when you look at the players on paper, I mean, the difference is night and day. You can tell we've spent almost £60 million on the players we've brought in. We've invested in real quality. But, obviously, as I said, there's that risk that you change too much too quickly. Now, I don't feel like there's much of a risk. I feel like with the players that we've got, we should still be kind of staying up in the Premier League relatively comfortably. And that's why I kind of feel quietly confident, I guess, changing as much as I have. But until it's kind of proven on the pitch, it's still all kind of hypothetical. So let's see how we get on today. We're taking on Newcastle. They're not a bad side. They're a team who have established themselves as a Premier League side over the years. And I guess it's going to be up to us to try and give a good kind of opening season performance here. First game of the year, a chance to kind of state our intent, I guess. And well, looking at this game early on, it's not been the best start for us. Kasongo has picked up an injury. He's got a bruised hip. Do I want to take off a player with a bruised hip? I could probably risk it. It's not going to be that serious. He's a very good player for us. I think we'll keep him on for now. But looking at these stats, Newcastle, they're dominating the ball. They're not necessarily creating a whole host of clear-cut chances, but they've created more chances than we have, and that's perhaps the concern there. And I'll be honest, at half-time, part of me just wants to go straight to the narrower system and see how that could work for us. And I think that's actually what we're going to do. So we'll play Kasongo and Silla alongside each other. This is kind of what I've planned for. So Kasongo is going to move into the centre and play as kind of the advanced forward. We'll have Silla alongside him as a complete forward. Again, a role he's very well suited to playing. It means Jonathan Chang comes in behind. Again, he's just really well suited to this. It does mean that we do have to do kind of a few little changes in the centre of the midfield. I think the player who I'm going to bring on is actually going to be Tomohisa Kato to come and play box-to-box midfielder for us. As I said, this year I'm keen to give younger players a chance. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to move Hamdi to the box-to-box midfielder and play Kato as the advanced playmaker, because Kato is a very, very good kind of creative outlet and lacks a little bit defensively, whereas Hamdi is not too bad defensively at all. So we'll go with this. We'll see how we get on. A little bit of a roll of the dice, I guess, to change the shape half a game into the first game of the season. But as I said, I kind of want to experiment. I want to see, can Kasongo and Silla form a partnership alongside each other? Can they be... I'm trying to think of a good analogy for a strike partnership in the Premier League. I want to say Andy Cole and Dwight York, but that's like a bit kind of too far back now, isn't it? I'm trying to think of a modern day partnership. I want to say Jonathan Walters and Peter Crouch. That's what we're looking for. Jonathan Walters and Peter Crouch. Let's see how they link up. Kasongo here, holding up the ball nicely, although does get dispossessed. And Newcastle have quite a few men in the attack, although Diatta wins it high up the pitch. Can we counter now? Chan plays through Kasongo, who has got that bruised hip, passes it to Silla, who hits it. It's offside. Everyone sit down. It was a great finish. Would have been a fantastic goal on your debut, Silla. I'll give you it. Unfortunately, the flag was raised. So, yeah, it doesn't count. That's how football works, unfortunately. I'm a little bit concerned about that Asamoah booking. If I'm honest, I don't really want to make a second change this soon, but I might be forced to. I know he got booked very early on in the game. Diatta as well at left back is a little bit of a concern because he is a younger player, perhaps a tad inexperienced, but he has put in a fairly solid game so far. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to move Hamdi to deep line playmaker on defend and bring in Jonathan Smith to play box to box. I'm also going to take off Kasongo at this point. He's not the greatest game. Of course, he has been carrying an injury for a lot of it. And we're going to give Cameron Bowman, the 19-year-old Australian, a little run out. Let's see what he can do for us. A player who I'm kind of excited to see this guy. A player who he's been big to pull off. We just look at him here. He's been, a player who obviously he played in the team last year and made 12 appearances, but this year, this is his season to make that impact with us. I feel like he'll become kind of a third choice striker for us and a Premier League goal scorer, and hopefully he can rise to that challenge. Anyway, we do need to defend well here as the ball's whipped in. Mannion deals with it kind of, although Ryan Gould lays it to Ivan, who hits the woodwork. Diatta, get it clear. The shot blocked, I think, by Diatta. Fair play to the defender. He did well there. It's a bit disappointing in this game as a whole. Neither team created a whole lot, although that was the first clear-cut chance of the game. It still might not be over, although it does now go out for a goal kick. I feel like a draw wouldn't be a bad performance necessarily, but it'd be nice to get off to a winning start, particularly at home. And while we're on the attack here, Diatta, Bowman, whips it in, cleared away, Hamdi. They're trying to hit us on the counter here, aren't they? Edwards goes out wide to a guy's name. I'm not even going to try and say it. O'Neill, the club captain, wins it. Silla, can he score this time? Not offside. Chan. Jonathan Swift, Diatta, the left back. Can he pull the ball back? He can. Silla's there, and Silla finishes it. I don't think it was an own goal. It wasn't. Silla, welcome to the club, my friend. A player who obviously comes in with a fantastic goal-scoring record from Belgium. Got 20 goals in the last 2 years. You expect goals from him. He obviously scored an absolute screamer, which was given offside, but a lovely goal here. And good to see Diatta, the young left back, as well, getting the assist. A player who perhaps shouldn't necessarily be starting just off raw ability, but with the potential he has, I really want to give him kind of time to play here because he's a very good player, obviously. Great when it comes to his athleticism, and he just needs to improve technicals, and he has all the makings of a great fullback. Anyway, just to close out this game, I am just going to go on contain and kind of park the bus a little bit, just because we don't need to go too crazy here. We can just hold back, I think, for the last 2 minutes. A 1-0 win, certainly a result I would have taken at the start of the game. You know, a game that you'd have to say we were very, very slow starting in. We switched to the narrower system and it worked really, really well for us, which is great because, as I said, it's a system that I am kind of thinking about playing regularly. Obviously, good to see Diatta get man of the match as well, the young Senegalese player, as I mentioned. A bit of a risk to play him, but well, the risk was certainly worth it, at least today. And well, hopefully he can have a really good kind of season to remember and hopefully kind of come on leaps and bounds getting regular first-team football this season. But anyway, that is a very good result for us. If we just look at kind of the prediction, I guess, for ourselves, I'm not actually sure where the kind of press are thinking we're going to finish, and I'm kind of curious to find out. I guess if I had to take a stab in the dark, it'd be relegation zone still. Actually, you can see here, we're not the favourites to get relegated. That's a change for once. That's not happened in a while. We are down in 16th, but Newcastle, who we beat, they are actually predicted to finish 8th. They are in the Europa League as well, so they're not a bad side. They actually finished 6th last year, so that's a very good result. I didn't quite realise how good that win was to open up the season. In terms of when we'll be back, you can see we've got a really tough run of Manchester United, Liverpool and Chelsea. I think I'll be back next episode for that game against Chelsea at home. Obviously, that'll be kind of rounding off what will be a very kind of tough run to the start of the season. Chelsea last year, they had a fairly good year. They finished 3rd, so they are going to be another team who perhaps we want to benchmark ourselves against. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys for the next one. Between then and now, though, we've got Derby, we've got West Ham, 2 games that I hopefully think are winnable. Bournemouth as well, of course. Kind of a weird derby because we are still playing at the Bournemouth Stadium for 1 more year before we move into our new ground. So that will be kind of that weird game where we play away from home, but in reality it's the stadium we normally play at. Anyway, that is going to be all from me, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed. Let me know what you made of my transfers. What do we think of the transfer business? Do we think that Silla is going to do the job for us? Do we think Kasongo can do a job for us? He's out injured for 2 to 3 days with his bruised hip, but I'm hoping those 2 players can come up very, very big for us. I'd be interested to know as well, do you think I should stick with the 4-2-3-1 for a little bit longer, or is the narrower system the way to go? I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you for watching as always, guys. Leave a like if you did enjoy, and other than that, it is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.